I actually got an ND3 because high budget versus low budget Mazda Miata. This is a 2024 Mazda Miata ND3 RF. That's club with the Brembo BBS Recaro package. That's just like mine. Same options and everything. One exception, that's RF, not soft top. Here is a 2008 NC1 base Miata. So essentially, the most expensive, most recent, highest budget Miata, going for $42,000 MSRP versus a used NC1. Essentially the budget play, the value play in modern era. You can go NA, NB. They're a lot harder to find, at least for a decent example. NC1s, you can get a decent example for about $8,000 to $11,000. Now the owner here has added $7,000 in mods. We've got ohlins from Sakebomb Garage. That's 9K front, 5K rear. Progress front sway bar with the heavy setting in the front, and whiteline rear sway bar with medium setting in the rear. gloc R8 brakes, motul RBF 660, and stainless steel brake lines. Now keep in mind, this is the base, so it has a 5-speed manual transmission. You have to go higher trim to get the 6-speed. This also therefore does not have an LSD. Just like the new ND3, this one does of course have a Torsen LSD, but if you get the base spec, I think it's called the Sport in the ND, that one also does not have a Torsen LSD, and also if you get auto, you won't get the LSD. In terms of appearance, NC gets way too much hate, but you gotta admit, ND3 looks way sharper. It is my favorite looking Miata, and it has Soul Red Crystal Metallic, the best color for the Miata. This one here is called True Red, or as the owner calls it, Base Red. Not as pretty of a color, but still at least it's a bright color on a small sports car. We're powered by a 2-liter inline-4 engine making 166 horsepower, 140 pound-feet of torque with a 7,000 RPM redline. Because this is the NC, the larger, heavier generation, this is weighing in right around 2,480 pounds, very close to the Miata RF, weighing right around 2,500 pounds. Now in the interior, we got these aftermarket pedals, seat lowering bracket, which is why you can see this is like 1 or 2 inches lower than the passenger side, which is helpful. Owner's taller, I'm taller, and also this wheel. Now the wheel, is a Cypher Miata wheel. It is quite thicker and chunkier for larger people with larger hands. And we also have this Super Miata hub, which brings it out 2.2 inches closer to you because this generation doesn't telescope, it just tilts. So very nice touch if you're a taller driver. It gets the steering wheel closer to your chest and you can sit further back. We got this Miata Roadster short shifter. You gotta remember in the NC1s, when you could get a 5-speed, that was essentially the 5-speed from the NB. The yellow tag, it is such a nice touch. We're wearing binaural mics. If you wear headphones, it's gonna feel like you're in the car. You're gonna hear in a few corners that there's wind noise because there are holes in the soft top. The owner bought this car primarily as a track toy and a weekend canyon cruising kind of beater car. A car he doesn't have to worry about. Now the reason the NC1 is quite a bit cheaper than the NC2 and NC3 on the used market is because the NC2, NC3 brought not only some much needed suspension modifications, but also more forged internals in the engine, makes more power, higher redline, better NVH on that one too. Sharp front end. He has a ton of negative camber in the front. And the thing with the NCs is that they don't feel quite as sorted out and planted and stable as the NDs. And the reason is that because this is the largest Miata, remember this was based on the same architecture, the same platform as the RX-8. So to make it feel more nimble, they had this toe change that was both kinetic and compliance based. So when you were entering the corner, it would toe out, make it feel more nimble, make it feel more agile, gives you a little bit of that uncertainty and that instability at corner entry. And then on mid-corner and corner exit, it would toe in again to give you that stability. And combined with that super sharp front end, This then gives you a bit more excitement at a lower limit, let's say. So it's not a car that's going to inspire confidence and make you want to push it hard. Man, heel towing is really hard because I can't even hold myself in position because these seats are not giving me enough support. In this generation, you still had hydraulic steering, so you're getting feedback through the wheel. With the current setup, suspension alignment, tires, all that, it's not the most I felt in an ND, but it's still pretty decent. The steering and the front end are overall satisfying. They're giving you a bit of communication, a good amount of directness. Now this car doesn't have an LSD, and you would definitely feel that if it had more power, but here at canyon speeds on these higher speed sweepers, you don't really notice that. Not finding heel toe in this car as natural as in some other Miatas. I think that might be the aftermarket pedals. Go, baby, go! I'm giving it the beans! But even the slightest of incline is enough to defeat the NC1. The thing I love about these cars, though, is at the low price point, you don't have to stress about them. They're just like these fun toys. You can take them as they are, add some mods, get the driving character that you want. If you want it to be a little bit more serious, a little bit more sharp, or if you want it to be a little more comfy, whatever you want, at an affordable price point, and then you don't have to stress about it. There's value in that. You owning things, things not owning you. This truly is slow car fast, and it's also cheap car, peace of mind. I like that. Oh man, this indicator stock is so far because of the hub. Otherwise you'll miss it like this. You gotta move your hand completely. As always, you got very natural throttle response in Miatas. It does require a little bit of a heavier blip, but once you calibrate to that, very natural, very easy. All the inputs are similarly weighted, very congruent, natural and one-to-one. The sharpest thing about this car is really the front end, all that camber. Everything else feels not, I'm not gonna say it's not sharp, but other things feel a little bit more like they're dialed back 2 notches, whereas the steering is dialed up 2 notches in comparison. And you know, speaking of value, for those who like watches, Seiko SNDD87, got this in med school for like 150 bucks when I was broke, and I wanted to treat myself. And it's got the chronograph, the 1/20th millisecond subdial at the top. You don't need expensive shit to enjoy yourself. But with that being said, let's see how the ND3 compares. Now it's time for the 24 ND3 Club RF with the Brembo BBS Recaro package. Now, compared to the NC, we have a more powerful engine here. It's also a 2-liter inline-4 naturally aspirated engine, but we're making 181 horsepower, 151 pound-feet of torque with a higher redline at 7,500. Now, the Club RF is about 150 pounds heavier than the soft top, and that puts it very close in weight to the NC1. So the NC1, again, is 2,480. This is 2,450. Both are double wishbone in the front, multi-link at the rear. But with the ND3, what they did is they moved the engine. It was already pretty far back and pretty low down in the NC. But with the ND3, they went further back and even lower down. And they also reworked the interior to have a little better ergonomics for the driver. Because in Japan, of course, you drive on the right-hand side. And the pedals being shifted to the right, there was no issue in the NC. But you brought the NC to the States, and the pedals with the transmission tunnel were a little bit offset. So with the ND, they actually reworked that so it's a little bit more symmetric. The whole car overall, of course, feels far more modern. It feels very premium. This is, of course, the higher trim. It's not the GT, but still you got these beautiful Recaros, excellent seats. Got this nice leather on the wheel, nice modern design. A familiar place for me. Equally familiar is the frustration that a $42,000 car does not have climate control. Just give me single zone. I don't even need dual zone. No climate control and no automatic headlights. You get that on the GT, the higher trim. We do have heated seats in this. Don't need that today. We have a 6-speed manual transmission. They actually reworked the transmission completely compared to the NC's transmission, the NC2 and NC3's transmission, which actually was improved over the NC1. And remember, that NC1 was actually an NB. It all gets kind of confusing. That thing drones so much. I'm glad this is a bit quieter. Let's give you a pull. The one issue I have with the ND is that the engine is just not as fizzy or as special as I would like for a car like this. That's the one thing I feel is holding it back stock. Granted, it's definitely better than the NC1 engine, both in the sound and the delivery and the smoothness. The NC2, NC3 engine, though, is, I'd say, my favorite, even though those make less power compared to this ND. Steering here is heavier, and I actually enjoy it more. I'm getting a little bit less feedback from the road. It's still there, because with the ND3, they've retuned that over the ND2 and ND1. But it has this very natural weighting to it. As you load up in a corner, the amount it weights up and then releases is very helpful to have that information as you drive. The front end is not nearly as sharp. That was set up really well with the Sakebomb ohlins of long travel as well on the rear end, which you feel the advantage of, particularly on bumpier roads. But it's a much stiffer ride that's more track focused. Here, we're getting a bit more body roll, although this does feel a little bit firmer than my ND3, and I think it's because the hardtop, the RF, I believe they have stiffer suspension set up to accommodate for the slightly increased weight and slightly higher center of gravity. But it still takes a moment to set. The NC, on the other hand, it just sets immediately. Tons of camber in the front, stiffer suspension. So the front end has immediacy and sharpness, but the thing here is you can feel the weight transfer, and you get a little bit of that wiggle and a little bit more time between the initial input you give and the setting, the stabilization of the vehicle into that state. And that makes this car feel more natural as you push it. It's a little bit more predictable. It doesn't have that weird toe-in, toe-out behavior on the rear end either. You have a greater sense of stability and it being a little bit buttoned down and more sorted out. NC is probably struggling right now on this slight incline, which is why we're on its tail. Even the NVH here, I mean, that thing just drones like mad. This car finds a good balance point. I mean, with the hard top up, it's actually relatively quiet. And when you push it closer to redline, you get a little bit of that engine note, and you're getting a little bit of excitement. Not too much, right? It's not a very visceral and raw car. It's a car that you could daily if you wanted to. And I think that's the real trade-off. You're paying a lot more money to have more refinement, to have the Apple CarPlay, the larger screen, the heated seats, keyless entry, nice new LEDs, better chassis rigidity, better suspension tuning, and just sorting out all these little details over time to keep iterating every generation. So technically on paper, this is a better car. It's hard to argue that that would be the better car in any dimension, really. Maybe you could argue the steering slightly, but even there, I actually prefer the steering, even with its slightly less feedback, of this E-Pass versus that hydraulic rack. But it's not just about what is technically superior. I don't think someone who chooses the NC is wrong and someone who chooses the ND is right, or vice versa. It comes down to your use case. I actually got an ND3 because it was going to be my only car in a different city from where I live. I was keeping it at my girlfriend's, and it's great for that dual duty where I can take it to the canyons, have a great time, and then also drive to the gym and to the grocery store and drive around town. It's a great dual purpose vehicle in that way. But the NC, because it is older, more visceral, less refined and polished, and it gives you that headway where you can, you know, when the car only costs 10 grand, you can throw in more in mods. I mean, 42 versus 10, that's 1/4 the price. And even with mods, it's less than half the price of this. You can get it even more, I guess, more in the direction that you want. Do you want it to be harder and sharper and more exciting and visceral? If so, the NC is going to give that to you at a very good price point. And the thing I love about it too is that it's just so cheap. You don't have to stress about the car. You get a brand new car, you got brand new paint, you got, you know, sure, you have your warranty and stuff, which is nice, peace of mind, but you become a little bit more precious with a brand new car, especially a car that, you know, costs 40 grand versus an older used car that's seen rougher days, that has scratches, that has these blemishes. There's something liberating about that. And you still get the same flavor, obviously. They're still clearly Miatas. They're light, super, super light by modern standards, even though we joke that that's the boat. Both sub 2,500 pounds is insane. It is so light. And you still have great inputs, very satisfying manual transmissions, very natural inputs with the 3 pedals, and pedal placement is also good, even though that's not quite as good as this. The steering in both is excellent in different ways. The flavor is there, but this is the modernized, more grown-up, buttoned-down, more adult version, if you will. If I wanted a weekend car to just toss around and beat the shit out of, I'd go for an NC though. Probably an NC2, NC3. I'd pay a little bit more of a premium for that because the NC2, NC3 you can get for like 15 to 17K, and there are suspension and engine differences there that make it worth it over the NC1 in my opinion. And that's the beautiful thing with Miatas. You can go cheap to relatively expensive and anything between depending on what you want. Even ND2s and ND1s are a lot cheaper. Of course, ND1's having some significant transmission issues. And the nice thing is based on your priorities, you can get exactly what you want. For me, I am more interested in steering precision and the feedback and all the little nuances more so than maybe the average person. So yeah, ND3 to me makes more sense. But if you don't care about that, ND2 is gonna get you 95% of the way there. This does have the updated LSD, the asymmetric LSD, that gives you better rotation on corner exit and more stability on corner entry, because these with trailer braking would really get sideways. And granted, on these roads today, I can't comment much on that because we have commented on that on lower speed, second gear corners and such, but on these higher speed sweepers, you're not gonna elicit that. That's more for on track and on tighter, more technical roads. But not so much here. So the LSD trade-off is actually not very noticeable, although, again, you can definitely notice the LSD differences of the ND3 versus the ND2 on lower speed, canyon roads, and on track. The longer I own my ND3 Miata, the more enamored I'm getting with the car. I have some mods incoming, and there's a reason why they say Miata is always the answer. Now, of course, there are trade-offs, and we can get into the whole S2000 discussion and the alternatives and the relative pros and cons. But the Miata can serve just about everyone if you are a true driving enthusiast. My friends, let me know what you think. Would you go for NC1 modified? Would you go for ND3 stock? Leave a comment down below. Big thanks to the owners, Matt and Eric, for letting me review their cars. If you want your car reviewed, check out jabalandcars.com. Fill out the form on the homepage. That's how they got in touch. Much love, my friends, and I'll see you all in that next one.